This water back here is 54 degrees, and that's probably some of the warmer water we've seen so far this morning. And you know, a lot of times when you fish in the early spring, you know, some of your warmest water is actually right against the bank. You know, it's not out in 10, 15 feet of water. It's actually right up there in that first foot or two of the bank, and that's where a number 5 Shad Rap really shines. As soon as that bait hit the bottom, he's right up there, I mean, against the bank. Fishing's been pretty tough here of late. You know, we've had some kind of extremely cold weather and, you know, a lot of ice and snow, and, you know, the lake's had a big influx of cold water come into it, you know, and you know, that's one thing, the Shad Rap is always such a phenomenal bait early on when that water's in the 40s and low mid 50s, you know. Shad Rap's hard to beat. It's just that little subtle action. You know, and if you look at a Shad Rap in the water, you see that just that little subtle wiggle. Whenever you look at a bait fish in this cold water, you know, he's not really kicking back and forth real hard, and the Shad Rap is so good about getting bites in cold water. And like I said, the number 5 is often overlooked. As these fish migrate back into these creeks, they're gonna kind of hold next to the deepest water there is, and sometimes that deep water might be 3 or 4 feet of water, and sometimes that deep water might be 20 feet of water. So it all pertains to where you live in the United States and, you know, what type of lake you live around. You know, this time of year, you always hear people talk about transitions, and transitions are usually where rock changes size. And right here, as you can see, it goes from like a pea gravel rock to a bigger broken chunk rock and then back into pea gravel. And that's exactly what that fish was sitting on, was that transition. And you know, kind of two things. It gives the fish an ambush point, that bigger rock. Also, those bigger rocks hold a lot of heat this time of year in the spring. And you know, we got a lot of colored water, so that fish was up pretty shallow, which is kind of where you expect them to be. And that dirtier water is up there within the first few feet of the bank. So we're just gonna kind of run around and fish some of these transitions here. And we got a little wind blowing in, we got a cold front coming in, so we really kind of have a perfect setup. The fish ought to be biting. Oh, there's another one. Got one on the old number 5 Shad Rap. You know, this is a small bait, but one thing about this little bait is it'll catch big fish. And a lot of times, especially in this cold water, when these fish get up real shallow, or after they've been really kind of pressured for a while, this is a really good bait to try on these shallow banks. And you know, I'm not sitting very deep. The boat's only sitting in about 5 feet of water here. And you know, this little bitty bait, you know, there's been a lot of big bass caught on this little bait, 5, 6, 7 pounders. And we're just kind of throwing this bait up real shallow. I'm throwing a number 5 gold or crawdad pattern. And I've got this paired up on some pretty light, this is Suffolk's 8-pound titanium mono. And I've got this on a Lew's, actually this is a drop shot rod. And this rod's got quite a bit of tip to it. You can see it's got quite a bit of flex. And it takes a little bit to kind of throw it, especially today with this windy conditions. And I'm just concentrating on these shallow banks in the back thirds of these bays. He was right on the bank. I mean, within the first 2 reels. Go out, try some number 5s and gain some confidence in a crankbait, and you'll find your fishing will really improve. The better you get with the number 5, that might lead to the number 6 or the number 7. And you know, you'll kind of find yourself throwing it more and more, and the more confidence you gain, the better the fisherman you'll be.